Good evening, America. Welcome to Starlight News Network. I'm honored you've joined us tonight for a very special report, one that's been close to my heart for quite some time now. Before we begin, I want to ask you something personal, something that'll take you back to Saturday afternoons at the picture show, or maybe those quiet evenings gathered round the television set with your family. When you think of John Wayne, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it that unforgettable walk, that confident swagger that no other actor could ever replicate? Is it the way he'd squint into the desert sun, his jaw set like granite, ready to face whatever danger lay ahead? Or perhaps it's one of those legendary lines that still echo through American cinema. Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway. Tell me, friend, what's your favorite John Wayne scene? What's that one line, that one moment that still gives you chills every time you see it? I'd truly love to hear from you, because tonight we're going to explore the man behind those moments, the real Duke. You see, for over 5 decades, Marion Robert Morrison, better known to the world as John Wayne, stood as the very definition of American heroism on the silver screen. He wasn't just an actor, friends. He was an institution, a symbol of everything this nation held dear: courage, integrity, strength, and an unwavering moral compass that pointed true north even in the darkest of times. Think about that for just a moment. From 1926 to 1976, this man appeared in over 170 motion pictures. 170! That's not just a career, folks. That's a legacy carved into the very bedrock of American culture. He worked with the greatest directors Hollywood has ever known: John Ford, Howard Hawks, Henry Hathaway. These legendary filmmakers understood something profound about John Wayne. They knew that when the Duke walked onto a set, he brought something that couldn't be taught, couldn't be rehearsed, couldn't be manufactured. He brought authenticity, and Hollywood knew his worth. By the 1950s, John Wayne wasn't just a leading man. He was the leading man, the box office king. Studios would build entire productions around his presence, knowing that his name on a marquee was worth more than any advertising campaign money could buy. But here's what many people don't realize about the Duke's power in Hollywood. It wasn't just about star wattage or box office returns. It was about respect. Deep, genuine respect earned through decades of hard work, professionalism, and an old-fashioned code of honor that he brought to every single production. When John Wayne walked onto a film set, something remarkable happened. The grips would stand a little straighter. The younger actors would watch his every move, studying the master at work. Even veteran directors would lean in close, eager to collaborate with a man who understood the craft of filmmaking from every possible angle. He arrived early. He knew his lines cold. He treated everyone, from the studio executives to the newest production assistant, with the same straightforward courtesy. That was the Duke's way. No pretense, no Hollywood ego games, just honest, professional dedication to the work at hand. And that walk, that famous John Wayne walk. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? That distinctive roll of the shoulders, that unhurried confidence. That sense that here was a man who knew exactly who he was and didn't need to prove it to anyone. Directors tried to replicate it with other actors. They failed every single time, because that walk wasn't an affectation. It was the genuine article. There's a story they tell about a young actor who once asked John Wayne for advice on how to command a scene. The Duke thought about it for a long moment, then said in that unmistakable voice, "Talk low, talk slow, and don't say too much." Simple words, profound wisdom, and a perfect encapsulation of the man himself. But here's what we've come to explore tonight, friends. Here's the question that's been nagging at me for years, and perhaps it's been nagging at you too. We knew John Wayne, the movie star. We knew the cowboy who brought law and order to the frontier. We knew the soldier who stormed the beaches and held the line. We knew the marshal who faced down outlaws at high noon. But did we truly know John Wayne the man? Because I'm here to tell you tonight, folks, that the heroism you witnessed on that silver screen, that courage, that loyalty, that fierce devotion to doing what's right, wasn't just acting, folks. It wasn't just a character he put on with the costume and took off at the end of the day. The Duke's heroism was real as the American soil he loved so dearly. And tonight we're going to prove it to you with a story that he himself never wanted told. A story of quiet generosity, unwavering loyalty, and the kind of friendship that defines what it truly means to be a man. Stay with us, America. This is Starlight News Network, and you're about to meet the real John Wayne.
Now, to understand what I'm about to tell you, we need to travel back in time, back to an era when Hollywood still had room for loyalty, when a handshake meant something, when the people who built this industry, not just the stars, but the stuntmen, the wranglers, the character actors who filled out every frame, were considered family. John Wayne never forgot where he came from, friends. Never forgot the lean years, when he was just another hopeful kid named Marion Morrison, working as a prop man at Fox Studios, dreaming of something bigger. He remembered every person who gave him a chance, every friend who believed in him when success was just a distant shimmer on the horizon. And there was one friend in particular, a man we'll call William, though those who know this story understand there were several men over the years who found themselves on the receiving end of the Duke's quiet generosity. William was a character actor and stuntman who'd worked alongside Wayne in the early days, the really early days, back when both men were young and hungry, full of dreams about what they might become. They'd done perhaps a dozen pictures together throughout the 1930s and 1940s. William was never going to be a leading man. He knew that, and he'd made peace with it. But he was reliable, professional, the kind of solid, dependable presence that directors loved to have on set. And more importantly to John Wayne, he was a true friend. The kind of friend who'd lend you his last dollar without being asked, who'd cover for you when you made a mistake, who'd stand by you when the chips were down. The movie business has never been kind to such men, friends. The character actors and stuntmen who gave their bodies and their best years to this industry often found themselves discarded when they could no longer perform. No pensions waiting for them, no safety net, just memories of the glory days and bills that kept piling up regardless. By the early 1960s, William's career had slowed to a trickle. The new generation of filmmakers didn't know him. The old directors who valued his work were retiring or passing on. He picked up occasional work, a day here, a week there, but it wasn't enough. It was never enough. And William had a ranch, you see, a modest spread out in the California hill country that had been in his family for 3 generations. It wasn't much by Hollywood standards, maybe 160 acres of good grazing land, an old farmhouse that needed work, a barn that had seen better days. But to William and his family, it was everything. It was home. It was legacy. It was the one thing of genuine value he could pass on to his children. But ranching is an unforgiving business, friends. The costs never stop. Feed, equipment, taxes, repairs. And when the acting work dried up, William made a decision that would haunt him. He mortgaged the ranch. Just to get through, you understand. Just to keep food on the table and the lights burning. He told himself it was temporary. Told himself the work would pick up. Told himself he'd pay it back before anyone was the wiser. The work didn't pick up. The payments fell behind. And by the winter of 1962, William received the notice that no rancher ever wants to see. The bank was calling in the loan. He had 60 days to come up with nearly $40,000, an absolute fortune in those days, or lose everything his grandfather had built. $40,000. William might as well have been asked to produce the moon. He was 63 years old. His body was worn down from decades of stunt work. The falls, the fights, the horse tricks that audiences never appreciated the danger of. His wife's health was failing. His adult children had families of their own to support. There was nowhere to turn, no one to ask, and he was too proud to beg. That was the cruel irony of it. William had spent his entire career playing tough, capable men on screen, men who solved their own problems and asked for nothing. He'd internalized that code so deeply that the thought of reaching out to his old friends in Hollywood, hat in hand, asking for charity, it was unthinkable. He'd rather lose everything than suffer that humiliation. Now, I need you to picture something with me, friends. friends. Picture John Wayne in his private study at his home in Newport Beach. It's a handsome room, wood-paneled walls lined with photographs and mementos from a lifetime in pictures. Western memorabilia everywhere. A massive desk where he handles the business side of his career, reviews scripts, makes the countless decisions that running a production company requires. It's late evening. The house is quiet. Wayne is alone, enjoying a rare moment of peace after a long day of shooting. He's nursing a drink, perhaps reviewing the call sheet for tomorrow, when his longtime personal assistant knocks and enters with a troubled expression. She hands him a letter. Not a telegram, though that's often how I imagine it, but a handwritten letter from a mutual friend in the industry. Someone who knew William, knew his situation, and felt that someone ought to know what was happening to this good man. I wish I could tell you exactly what was in that letter, friends. I wish I could quote it word for word, but I can tell you what it contained: the whole sad story, the failing career, the mortgage, the impending foreclosure, the proud old stuntman's refusal to ask for help, the family that was about to lose their home right before Christmas. Picture John Wayne reading those words, friends. Picture that famous face, the face that had portrayed so many heroes as the meaning sunk in. Picture those eyes that had squinted into 1,000 sunsets on 1,000 film sets, now focused entirely on the plight of an old friend. Picture what happened next. John Wayne set down that letter. He didn't pace. He didn't rage. He didn't make dramatic pronouncements. That wasn't his way. Instead, he sat very still for a long moment, staring at nothing, his jaw working slightly the way it always did when he was thinking hard about something important. Then he reached for his telephone. What followed? Well, friends, what followed was the kind of quiet heroism that never makes the newspapers, the kind of loyalty that asks for nothing in return, the kind of generosity that would remain secret for decades because the man who performed it refused to take any credit whatsoever. John Wayne had just received his call to action, and unlike the movies, there were no cameras rolling, no audience watching, no reviews or box office returns to consider. There was only a friend in trouble and the unshakable knowledge of what needed to be done.
Now, friends, what I'm about to describe to you represents something increasingly rare in our modern world, something that speaks to an older code, a way of doing things that perhaps only those of us with some years behind us can truly appreciate. Because John Wayne didn't reach for his telephone that night to call a press agent. He didn't summon a photographer to document his generosity. He didn't alert the gossip columnists who would have loved nothing more than to splash a heartwarming story across their pages. No, sir. The Duke reached for his telephone and called his lawyer. Not just any lawyer, mind you. This was a man who had handled Wayne's personal affairs for years, a professional of the old school, discreet, utterly reliable, and experienced in the delicate art of helping without leaving fingerprints. The kind of attorney who understood that true charity often requires careful orchestration to protect both the giver and the receiver. The conversation was brief and businesslike. John Wayne was never one for unnecessary words, even in private. He explained the situation in straightforward terms. An old friend from the early days was about to lose his family ranch to foreclosure. The amount owed was approximately $40,000. This debt needed to disappear, and it needed to disappear in such a way that William could never trace it back to its source. Let me repeat that, friends, because I want you to understand how remarkable this was. John Wayne wasn't just writing a check, though he most certainly did write that check, drawn on his personal account, signed in that bold hand that had autographed thousands of photographs for fans over the years. He was engineering an anonymous rescue operation with the same tactical precision he might have brought to storming a beach at Iwo Jima. You see, the Duke understood something about William that went to the very core of what it means to be a proud man. He understood that simply handing over $40,000, even to a dear friend, even to save that friend's livelihood and family home, would have been devastating in its own way. It would have created an unpayable obligation. It would have shifted the entire dynamic of a decades-long friendship. It would have, in some fundamental way, diminished William in his own eyes. John Wayne refused to do that to his friend. So instead, he crafted something far more complicated, far more generous, really, than simply writing a check would have been. The lawyer was given explicit instructions, delivered in that unmistakable voice that had commanded cavalry charges and faced down outlaws on screen. The money would be placed in a special trust. The trust would then pay off William's mortgage directly to the bank. The bank would be instructed, and when John Wayne's lawyer made a request of a bank, that request was honored, to inform William only that an anonymous benefactor had cleared his debt. No names, no hints, no paper trail that could possibly lead back to the Duke. But that wasn't enough for Wayne. He knew William, knew the old stuntman would drive himself crazy trying to figure out who had helped him, would probably spend years investigating, questioning friends and family, torturing himself over this inexplicable gift. So there was a second layer to the instructions. A cover story was to be put in place, something about a life insurance policy from a forgotten relative, or perhaps a clerical error at the bank that had accidentally discharged the debt. The exact details varied in different tellings of this story over the years, and there were several such rescues over Wayne's lifetime, but the purpose was always the same: give the recipient a plausible explanation, something that didn't require a benefactor to thank, something that allowed them to accept the gift without the burden of gratitude. Can you imagine that, friends? Can you imagine having the means to save someone's life? Because that's really what we're talking about here. Saving a man's entire life's work, choosing to do it in such a way that you would never receive a single word of thanks, no acknowledgement at the next industry gathering, no tearful phone calls of gratitude, no favors owed or debts of honor to be repaid, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that you had done right by an old friend and that friend would never know it was you. That takes a special kind of strength, let me tell you. A strength that has nothing to do with the physical toughness John Wayne displayed on screen. This was moral strength, character, the kind of integrity that exists whether or not anyone is watching. The check was written that very night, friends, $40,000, plus additional funds to cover the legal costs of the rather elaborate transaction the Duke was commissioning. Some accounts suggest the total came to nearly $50,000, equivalent to several $100,000 in today's money. For John Wayne, at the height of his earning power, it was a significant but manageable sum. For William and his family, it was the difference between keeping their heritage and losing everything, between dignity and despair, between a future and an ending. The lawyer took his instructions and went to work. Within 48 hours, the wheels were in motion. Within 2 weeks, the legal mechanisms were in place. And by Christmas Eve of 1962, or so the story goes, the miracle would be complete. But here's what you need to understand about John Wayne's state of mind during those 2 weeks, friends. He never once followed up, never asked for updates or progress reports, never exhibited the slightest anxiety about whether his plan was working. Once he made the decision, once he set the rescue in motion, he simply let it go, moved on to the next day's work, the next scene to shoot, the next problem to solve. Because for the Duke, this wasn't about receiving satisfaction or reassurance. It wasn't about managing a charitable project. It was simply about doing what a man does when a friend needs help. You help quietly, completely, and then you get on with living. That was John Wayne. That was the real man behind the legend, and that was the kind of quiet heroism that no script could ever capture.
Christmas Eve, 1962, or perhaps it was the week before. The exact date has been lost to time, as these things often are when the people involved have no interest in creating a historical record. What matters is the setting. What matters is what happened to a family that had given up hope. Picture the ranch, friends. Picture it with me now, because I want you to feel what William and his family were feeling in those dark December days. The California hill country in winter, rolling brown hills dotted with ancient oak trees, their bare branches reaching toward a gray sky, a farmhouse that had sheltered 3 generations of the same family, its white paint peeling, its porch sagging slightly from decades of use and not quite enough maintenance, a red barn that had once housed prize cattle, now nearly empty save for a few aging horses and the equipment of a working ranch slowly winding down.
And inside that farmhouse, a family preparing for what they believed would be their last Christmas in the only home most of them had ever known. William had told his wife. He had to, finally. There was no hiding it anymore, no pretending that things might work out. The bank's deadline was approaching like a freight train, and there was nothing to be done. They would have to start packing, would have to find somewhere else to live, a rental in town perhaps, or maybe impose on relatives, would have to watch as strangers came to auction off the equipment, the livestock, the accumulated possessions of a lifetime. His wife took it with the quiet strength that ranch women have always possessed. She cried, yes, but only in private, only where William couldn't see. During the day, she maintained her composure, focusing on practical matters, making lists of what could be saved and what would have to be left behind. Their grown children came home for what everyone understood might be the last holiday gathering at the ranch. The grandchildren ran through the old rooms, unaware of the weight pressing down on the adults who watched them with hearts full of sorrow. How do you explain to a child that the magical place where they spent summer vacations, where they learned to ride horses and catch fireflies, was about to be taken away forever? William himself had grown quieter with each passing day. The fight had gone out of him. This proud man who had once doubled for the biggest stars in Hollywood, who had performed stunts that would terrify most people, who had lived a life of physical courage and professional pride, this man had been defeated, not by an enemy he could fight, but by numbers on a page, by debts and obligations, and the cruel mathematics of a world that had moved on without him. On Christmas Eve, he sat on the front porch despite the chill, wrapped in an old blanket, staring out at the land his grandfather had homesteaded. Behind him, his family tried to create some semblance of holiday cheer, a tree decorated with ornaments collected over decades, familiar carols playing on the radio, the smells of holiday cooking drifting from the kitchen. William watched the sun set over his hills for just a few more days, and wondered how it all had gone so wrong. And then, friends, a car appeared on the long dirt road that led to the ranch. It wasn't a car you recognized, a dark sedan, moving slowly, kicking up dust behind it. William watched it approach with the wariness of a man who has learned to expect bad news. Another lawyer, perhaps. Another document to sign. Another nail in the coffin of his dreams. The car stopped front of the house. A young man in a suit got out. Not a lawyer, William realized, but perhaps a messenger of some kind. He carried a single envelope, crisp and white, and somehow important looking. "Mr. William," the young man asked, approaching the porch. William nodded, not trusting his voice. "I've been asked to deliver this to you personally, sir, and to wait while you read it." William took the envelope with trembling hands. His wife had appeared in the doorway, drawn by the sound of the car. Their children gathered behind her. The whole family watched as the old stuntman opened the envelope that would determine their fate. Inside was a single sheet of paper, bank letterhead, official language, numbers and dates, and legal terminology. But the meaning was clear, perfectly, impossibly clear. The mortgage had been paid in full. The debt that had been crushing this family, destroying their hopes, stealing their future, it was gone, simply gone. William read the letter 3 times, then a 4th. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the paper. "Bill?" his wife asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Bill, what is it? What does it say?" He looked up at her, at his children, at the grandchildren, peering around their parents' legs, sensing that something momentous was happening, but not understanding what. "It's paid," he said, and his voice broke on the words. "The mortgage? Someone paid it. All of it!" His wife's hand flew to her mouth. Her daughter burst into tears. Her son grabbed the letter to read it himself as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Who?" someone asked. "Who paid it?" But that was the question the letter didn't answer. There was language about a trust, about an anonymous benefactor, about legal arrangements that ensured the identity of the donor would remain confidential. The bank had been instructed, the letter made this very clear, to provide no additional information whatsoever. William sat back down in his porch chair, the letter clutched to his chest, and wept. These weren't tears of sadness, friends. These were tears of relief so profound, so overwhelming, that they swept away decades of stoic restraint. This tough old stuntman who had never shown weakness, never asked for help, never admitted that anything was beyond his power to handle. This man sobbed like a child on his front porch while his family gathered around him. The ranch was saved. The legacy would continue. His grandchildren would ride these hills. His great-grandchildren someday might sit on this very porch and watch the same sunset over the same beautiful land. But who? That question would haunt William for the rest of his days. Who had the means, the motive, and the secrecy to perform such an extraordinary act of generosity? He would never know, not with certainty. Oh, he had his suspicions. How could he not? He thought about the friends he'd made over the years in the picture business, thought about the stars he'd worked alongside, the ones who'd made it big while he had remained a working man. He thought about one friend in particular, a friend he hadn't spoken to in several years, but whose career he'd followed in the newspapers and the movie theaters. But he could never bring himself to ask, could never pick up the telephone and say, "Duke, was it you?" Because what if it was? What then? What words could possibly be adequate? And wouldn't the asking itself somehow diminish the gift? So William kept his suspicions to himself. And when he saw John Wayne at an industry event some months later, he simply shook the Duke's hand, looked him in the eye, and said, "It's good to see you, old friend." And John Wayne, with that famous half smile, said, "Good to see you too, partner. How's that ranch of yours treating you?" "Better than I deserve," William replied. And that was all that ever passed between them on the subject. Two old friends bound by loyalty and discretion and the unspoken understanding that some gifts are too precious to acknowledge.
Friends, I've told you this story tonight not because it's the only such story about John Wayne. It isn't. Those who knew the Duke well, the crew members, the fellow actors, the ordinary people who crossed paths with him over a 50-year career, they'll tell you that this kind of quiet generosity was simply who he was. There was the young actor from a troubled background who found himself in legal difficulties and discovered that an anonymous benefactor had hired the best defense attorney in Los Angeles. There was the widow of a stuntman killed on set who received monthly checks for years from a source she was never able to trace. There was the failing hospital in a small Arizona town that suddenly received a donation large enough to build a new pediatric wing, and no amount of investigation could determine where the money had come from. John Wayne didn't keep a record of these acts, didn't maintain a ledger of lives saved and debts paid. That would have defeated the entire purpose, you see. The Duke wasn't interested in building a monument to his own charity. He was interested in doing right by the people who deserved better than what fate had dealt them. And so the stories emerge only gradually as the years pass and the people who benefited grow old enough or brave enough to share what they know. Pieces of a mosaic revealing the true portrait of a man who was so much more than the characters he played. But here's what strikes me most powerfully about this story of William and his ranch, friends. Here's the detail that keeps me coming back to this tale, turning it over in my mind like a precious stone. John Wayne could have been the hero publicly, could have swooped in with cameras rolling, presented that check in front of reporters, basked in the gratitude of a family saved. It would have made wonderful publicity. Movie cowboy saves real ranch. Can't you just see the headlines? The studio publicity department would have loved it. The newspapers would have eaten it up. And John Wayne's already considerable reputation as a good and decent man would have been burnished to an even brighter shine. But he didn't do that, refused to do that, went to considerable trouble and expense to ensure that he couldn't do that, even if he'd later changed his mind. Why? Why go to such extraordinary lengths to remain anonymous? I believe it's because John Wayne understood something that many successful people never grasp. He understood that true generosity isn't about the giver, it's about the receiver. It's about preserving their dignity, protecting their pride, allowing them to accept help without the burden of obligation.
William would have spent the rest of his life trying to repay John Wayne if he'd known the truth, would have felt diminished somehow, indebted. The friendship would have changed, become asymmetrical, unequal, and the Duke valued that friendship far too much to let that happen. You know, friends, we live in an age of public philanthropy, an age where charitable giving often comes with press releases and photo opportunities and naming rights, and there's nothing wrong with that. The world needs generosity in all its forms, but there's something about the quiet gift, the anonymous kindness, the help that asks for nothing in return, not even acknowledgement. There's something about that kind of giving that speaks to the very best of human nature, and John Wayne, whatever his flaws, and he was human, friends, as human as any of us, embodied that kind of giving, not once, but throughout his life, not for show, but simply because it was the right thing to do. The Duke always stood by his friends, always, whether the cameras were rolling or not, whether anyone would ever know or not, in prosperity and in hardship, in the spotlight and in the shadows. John Wayne was the kind of friend that we all hope to have, and if we're being honest with ourselves, the kind of friend we all hope to be. And that brings me to my closing question for you tonight, friends, a question I've been thinking about ever since I first heard this story many years ago. We've just spent this time together exploring one of the most loyal acts of friendship I've ever encountered. John Wayne saved his friend's life, saved his legacy, his dignity, his family's future, and asked for nothing in return, not even thanks. So I want to ask you, what is the most loyal thing a friend has ever done for you? Was there a moment in your life when someone appeared unbidden to lift you up when you were down? Did a friend ever defend you when you weren't there to defend yourself? Did someone you love make a sacrifice that you only learned about years later, or perhaps never learned about at all? Tell me about it. Share that story in the comments, not because I'm curious, though I am, but because these stories need to be told. Because in a world that sometimes seems short on loyalty and long on selfishness, we need to remind each other that true friendship still exists, that people still sacrifice for each other, that the kind of heroism John Wayne displayed on screen can be found quiet and unassuming in living rooms and hospital waiting rooms and modest ranch houses all across this great nation. Before we go, friends, I want to be clear about something. This is a tribute. We're here to honor the memory of John Wayne and the values he represented. The specific details of the story I've told tonight have been assembled from various accounts over the years, and like all stories that are passed down, some particulars may have shifted in the telling, but the essential truth, the truth of John Wayne's character, his loyalty, his quiet generosity, that truth is well documented by those who knew him. The Duke really was the kind of man who would save a friend's ranch and refuse to take credit. That's the legacy we're celebrating tonight. This has been a Starlight News Network special report. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for keeping the memory of the Duke alive. And thank you for being the kind of loyal Americans who appreciate a good man when they see one. Until next time, friends, keep your powder dry and your hearts open. Good night, America, and God bless.